Hello there, and welcome to Siasa Africa, your weekly podcast that delves in and examines the political happenings in the African continent on a weekly basis. And today, again, I'm back with Thomas. And Thomas, thank you for joining me.
Thank you again for inviting me here.
We are making this video out of urgency, and it's urgency on what's going on in Sudan. And it's just been 4 days, but what's happening has gained international attention. And we are talking about the chaos and the fighting and war that has been going on in Sudan. And as of currently, we have more than 185 people who have been killed, with more than 1,800 who have been wounded. But it's really hard to get the actual numbers because right now you can't even go in the streets to account for what's going on and the people who have been killed and what's happening. And unfortunately, when we are trying to understand what's going on, we have to go back all the way to 1955.
Yeah, as you said, it's been 4 days. We're watching on the news and we asking our friends in Sudan like how they doing, what's happening here. And what we observe is two really strong, powerful military groups that are fighting each other. It's still really unclear exactly what provoked it, but we have some suspicion that it's about the reorganization of that militia. And as you said, we need to get back to history to understand who are those people, who are those actors, and how is it that a man can be as powerful as the army and decide to attack the army of an entire country. This is a militia that is highly trained. They've been involved in Libya, they've been involved in Yemen, they receive weapons from Arabi Saudi. So they have really strong connections. When the government is a bit weaker in its international connections, the Egyptians and the government officials of government of Sudan are related, but it seems like the Egyptian fighter jets can't even be used right now. So there's a lot going on in Khartoum. We do not exactly know what will come out of this. People start to speak of civil wars. But this is the consequences of a regime, the regime of Omar al-Bashir, that back in the day developed those militia groups in order to do some war crime, right? So at the time, like the northern Arabs dominated countries were really like exploitative of the southern part of the country, right? And which is South Sudan today, and the government was failing to actually fight back. And the freedom fighters of South Sudan, now we call them freedom fighters, but back in the day we were called rebels. They were gaining momentum. They were getting stronger and stronger. So the president Bashar decided to create a militia groups of men from that regions of Arab descendants that will raid those villages. And when we think of what happened in South Sudan, in Darfur also, we know that there were war crimes. So we know that there were a lot of exactions. And once again, when we get back to history, we also see that those are the type of razzia that were made at the time of slavery in the same region by similar actors. So yes, history plays an important role here to try to understand what's going on.
And in a way, we can say that we understand the war is all about political power. It's about economic resources and social stability. But what is really the reason behind the war? And when we say we have to go back into history, what are we really looking forward to?
So what we're looking for here is I think to simplify, we can get back to 2011. North Sudan separate from South Sudan with the American administration pushing for it, right? So it was an American administration diplomatic move. So the country got divided into two. And so by that move, Sudan lost most of its petroleum resources. That was a petroleum giant on the continent, right? So in order so that creates a lot of vacuum of power, that creates a lot of reorganizations, because power is built on those we're built on those resources, right? So now what become the most important commodity in Sudan? You should know that. What is after petrol? What is the second one everyone wants? The gold. Everyone wants the damn gold. So now Sudan started to use this gold mine way much more. So the production of gold boomed from like 10 tons per year to like 100 tons per year. We're around 110 tons of gold exported, which made like Sudan the third biggest gold exporters of the continent, right? So what happened is that the zone that were controlled, where the gold were produced, were now controlled by that militia that were pushed out of South Sudan because of independence, and that now start to run wild around and take control of that, take control of the gold. With the control of the gold, they will become super powerful, powerful enough to overthrow Bashar al-Assad himself, not Bashar al-Assad, Omar al-Bashir, sorry, Omar al-Bashir himself, and then impose to civilians no civilian government so far. Because also what's happening is that at the end of, it was supposed to be around August, July, August, a civilian government was supposed to take over from the militaries, right? And so that civilian government didn't want to have like a lot of military groups around, right? They wanted to have one single army to protect the country. So now they wanted to make a fusion between the militias and the actual formal army. And the militias, General Emeti, decided he do not want to participate to that. He's powerful enough, he's in control of the gold trade, as you say, the resources are important here. He has a lot of resources. He has a lot of warriors that are highly trained. Those are warriors that are in war since the 90s, more or less, 100,000 men. That's what people speak about. I can't confirm those numbers, but everyone knows he's really powerful. And every single conflict in the region has been involved in since 10 to 15 years, literally personally involved in the war in Libya, in the war in Yemen. So we have a lot of, it's a strong and powerful group that is trying to seize power right now, and he seized power from the resources of the gold.
I mean, we are looking at a conflict in which civilians are suffering and they're dying and they're being displaced. How can this conflict be addressed in a peaceful way?
So right now, African Union's president is there, and Secretary General, sorry, he's been traveling there. There's a lot of mediations from different actors in Africa, outside of Africa. Everything seems to indicate that there is no coming back after this. So one have to win, or at least take an advantage on the other, and yeah, create something. Because yeah, I don't know. I'm not a military myself. I don't know how to sort out those conflicts, but definitely a civilian government. That's what Sudanese ask for since a long time. They want to try civilians. They're tired of being ruled by militaries. A civilian government and more transparency within like the army. What's happening in the army? Is it normal that a paramilitary group like size like the gold export of one entire country? No, not really. So yeah, I think what Sudanese ask for is decide of their own destiny without the militaries.
And when should we expect this conflict to be solved? Is it gonna be anytime soon, or is it gonna be here for a long time?
Hey, Renato, say you and your questions. Yeah. No, I don't see the future. I don't see the future. Listen, as I said, the army is powerful because the state have taken care of its army since military regime. So the army is powerful. The paramilitaries, so the defense forces are powerful. I'm not a military. I do not know what can come out of it. But what I know is that danger of the situation is at high risk, right? Because all those men, whatever from the army or from the paramilitary group, whatever happened, if one of those size power, then the other faction will be excluded, right? And where will they go? And that's why a lot of country around are really concerned about what's happening, because they don't fear an influx of refugee because the power can stay stable in Khartoum, but what they fear is an influx of warrior refugee. Of people that knows how to use weapons and that now spread around the region to whoever have enough money to pay them as mercenaries, right? And we know that in that group there's a lot of mercenaries from Chad, for instance, which shares a big border with Sudan. So we do know that there is a lot of it's a region where the borders do not make sense. I mean, most of African borders don't make sense, but this one particularly is in the middle of the desert. So you can imagine how easy things pass from one country to another.
So two generals, General Hemedi and General Abel, used to work together, and they overthrew Omar al-Bashir, who was the president for almost 30 years. What has happened?
So the two men were both powerful, and Omar al-Bashir himself were using different groups of warriors against each other in order to install his power. So he did create a lot of powerful group that can like balance each other. And one of the fear of a lot of diplomats of the region was, as soon as this will be taken out of power, all those groups will end up fighting each other for the power itself. It turns out that this is not what happened. What happened is a strong civilian movement came out on the street. Protests came out of Sudan. A lot of people were asking for democracy, democratization. So the military themselves now felt, the military and the different paramilitary groups found that they have to unite, right, to seize power against the civilians. So they united. They created some whole range of politics game that we won't explain. But basically, it turns out that they had to unite in order to make sure that they both keep the power they have, right? But this is what seems to be the coalition that have been in balance now, and the election was supposed to come, or at least the civilian government was supposed to take over. And I think like now both of them fear that if that's happening, they will lose some powers, or I don't know, I'm not in their mind, but basically we know that that have created like a strong conflict. The Sudan is a strong powerhouse in the region. When Sudan were in civil wars, the civil wars have been spreading towards the region, and it was a very strong humanitarian crisis, because you need to think, Fernandez, of all those soldiers now that know how to fight and that have their weapons. If they kicked out, where do they go? Look at what's happening in Congo. Like there is. Don't you think there will be people willing to pay to fight in Congo? Don't you think there will be people willing to pay for them to fight in Libya? There is a lot of conflict where those people can be useful, and that's what we fear. What we fear is a lot of young people that have been trained only to do those type of work. When you seen that, what were you thinking like?
Well, I mean, it's so sad that it's just one of those African stories about a military wanting to overthrow the government and taking over, and they don't want to hand over power to the civilians. And now what's so unfortunate about this is the fact that you have two armed forces that are fighting and civilians are observers, right? So despite who wins, there's still going to be consequences, right? Because you're going to have, as I said earlier, soldiers on the streets, right? Or soldiers who are misplaced, then anyone can use them as mercenaries. So it's quite unfortunate to see that this is what is happening. And given the fact that the country was under dictatorship and now it's under the military, and the citizens are the ones who are suffering, as how they say, when the elephants fight, it's the grass that feels the pain.
Yeah, it's true. But to be honest, as you said, we don't know how many people will die. But it's also about like, what if at some point there's some geographies that establish themselves, where let's say MHC take the east or the north, and then the government is in control of Khartoum only in the west. That's where you're gonna see a lot of death now, because right now they kind of fighting each other within urban setting. So the deaths are mainly collateral, so people that die out of a bomb that were not destined for them. At the moment where two territory will oppose each other, then the government or the army can use like flyer jet and bomb people from the air, not even knowing who they are, just saying they are rebels, but they're actually villagers. And that's when things start to get very, very bad. And that's what we see in Congo. In Congo, that's the situation we are in. So there is territories that fight each other. So yes, it's bad. From 100 civil, 200, it's really, really, really bad. And it's not at all how we should be doing democracy. But in the same time, the future is also scary, because we need to find some sort of a mediation, some sort of a way for forces to find an interest. I don't know if it's to create it's a complicated thing to bring rebels within a national army. They were not rebels, they were paramilitaries. But still, it's complicated to integrate them. But it's possible, and that's the only way that Sudan has. You can't have like paramilitary groups running around as powerful as your army that decide to sell themselves to Libya, to sell themselves to Yemen or Arabia Saudi. Like, nah, man, like that's too dangerous.
Well, it's very dangerous, and now we are seeing the effects of that.
And maybe another point is like the Secret Service are on point about what's happening right now, because it's all about that. It is all about the Secret Service. I can tell you, like at the heart of it, at the heart of it, is who control the Secret Service, and especially the military Secret Service, which right now are in the hand of General Emirati, but that he might lost. And if he loses it, then he loses like all the informations that he feels is protecting him, right? Because right now, if he's so powerful, it's because he has the information. He knows how much the army has. He knows who is willing to interfere from foreign countries or not. So yeah, they end up being like a key cornerstone. The Saudi Secret Service, the military Secret Service, are known in the regions, in the Sahel, in the desertic regions, as being in control of a lot of things, including like trade roads, military trade roads, like a lot of roads that are important for the gold, for ivory, for migrants. They really know what's going on. Like they really know what's going on in every story and leaks that come out of what's happened in Central Africa, of what's happened in Chad, of what's happened in northeast of Congo and Uganda. Every single of those stories, there is the Secret Service involved, one way or another. So all the time that there's a leak and the journalists break out something, and we have one story that we can follow, we always see that the Secret Service at some point play a role, spread information or disinformation. Contact also European media. Like I recently discovered that they contacted European media in order to say shit about the Russians in Sudan, which the Russians are, and they do have the gold, right? But the scandal helped them to get back the gold mine that they were looking for. So they spread information in European media. So guys like me, guys like you can, yeah, we have a scandal. What? We have a leak. Yeah. But at the end of that, it was them at the first point that wanted to get back the gold mine.
Wow.
That the president have given to the Russians in exchange of Wagner help. So it's like they're
There's a
here.
lot going
They're
on.
here. Yeah, there's a lot going on. And yeah, it is highly possible. It is highly possible that a group of warrior fighters, I have to call them as you want, like, will come out of this and size a coup somewhere else, size power somewhere else. It's highly possible. Like it has happened before. We've seen it before. If you have a group of 20 to 25,000 men that have weapons and a bit of gold, they're dangerous people. They will destabilize other countries. If they decide to seize the gold of the north of Chad, I don't really know if there's gold in the north of Chad, but if they decide that's where they want to go, they can do it. And for any national army, it will be tricky to stop them, and it will be bloody and costly.
Well, let's hope the best for Sudan.
Yes.